Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This morning, I'm going to be reacting to Legend of Kronan, Quest for Hykien, the first Choppa. Yes, I can't pronounce the the word Hykien. What? Hack Hack Hykien, the first Choppa. All right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but it's very difficult for me to pronounce this word. On the Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer YouTube channel, and this is part of the Kronan Drach'nyen playlist. And I have to thank Mitch for giving me a playlist that organizes all of the videos. I think I found the right one after I left off from what was it again? Kronan Drach'nyen, Legend of Kronan, Legend of Kronan, Kronan the King. Yes, from that video 2 years ago, I might add. It's now going to be Legend of Kronan, Quest for Hykien, the first Choppa. Yes, that's next after Kronan the King. After he won his battle on Aquilonia and he defeated and routed out the Imperium of Man forces, he was shouting out into space, being frustrated that, there's larger enemies, there are bigger humies out there that he needs to destroy, but he's still stuck there on Aquilonia. Yes, that's where I left off, and now this is a continuation from that episode. So yes, Quest of Hykien, the first Choppa. Yeah. Alright, let us start. Oh yeah, remember guys, if you want to check out the original video as well as Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. Did I say that my reaction playlist card is going to be at the top right here for Kronan Drach'nyen playlist reactions? It's going to be at the top. Yes. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Between the time when chaos broke Cadia and the return of the sons of the Emperor, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Kronan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia on a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell you of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
We are back!
And so it was that Kronan, who now wore the jewelled crown of Aquilonia on a troubled brow, was grown mighty in the eyes of his people. For across Orkidom the call had gone out, as we have clearly identified before. But as the primal scream went out across the galaxy, each greenskin that heard it, more felt its power wash over them. Each threw back their heads and gave the same bellow, the clarion call of their people.
So it's like a psychic shout. That wah! It was like a psychic shout that, echoed throughout the galaxy.
The wah.
I remember the first time I heard that. Yikes.
And it was mere days afterwards that the trickle began. A trickle that became a river.
So they're coming to him, meaning he doesn't have to build ships. Because I remember I stated before that after winning Aquilonia, he has to start making ships. But I guess he doesn't have to do that now that he has bellowed out this beacon, and now orcs are being attracted to his system of Aquilonia.
A river that became a tsunami, as one after another stairship began to arrive in the orbit of Aquilonia.
Starship. Okay. Let me write it here.
But few were the lone ships that made the muster. Most often they were flotillas or minor fleets of ships, and Kronan had become accustomed to the event of first contact. Now, in more effete or intellectually challenging settings, this might have involved lots of protocols, rules that could not be broken, prime directives and the like. But for Kronan,
etiquette and decorum, and there has to be some sort of order and structure. I don't think there's going to be any of that here.
First Contact had been named thus for a very simple reason. For despite the power of the core, the centre of the war clearly being the cunning one himself, many of the bosses of the spacefaring piratical forces believed that they had a better shot at pulling off this war.
Of course. That is the orc way. That's the orc culture. If you're a war boss, are you going to subsume yourself or kneel upon another war boss without a fight? No ways. No ways. If Kronan thinks he is worthy of leading all of these, orc hordes that are heading towards Aquilonia, he has to prove it. We got to scrap.
And so it was that Kronan would meet each and every one of them at the docking bay. One particular docking bay set aside for the purpose. The fleet bosses would disembark, start blathering on about how odd they were, and then this is when Kronan made first contact. In most cases, it took but one swing before he contacted the neck of the boss, and then got his noggin-arranging grots, often led by Happy Len, to remove the new trophy and have it added to the stack behind him. Of course, this could not be random or slapdash, and required that the head be placed according to the amount and fightiness of the forces that he had brought to the gathering.
That's a proper orc greeting right there, and first contact. That is just expected.
And so it was that when each head was taken, it was oft the case that Happy Len would need to direct exactly where the new decoration should be placed. Needless to say, the grots were still orky, hence the discourses betwixt them would invariably devolve into a massed fray. Yet, surprisingly, Happy Len tended to win out every time and have his way. Okay, it might have something to do with the fact that Tiddles, Kronan's pet squig,
hey Tiddles, long time no see,
treated Happy Len like a pet of his own. So anyone disagreeing with Len tended to get a close encounter of the horrifically and terminal dental kind. Now some found it odd that Kronan would throw tidbits of food to Tiddles, who would then engulf most of it in his mighty maw, yet always seemed to save some for the wee grot whenever he was present. Should Happy Len like it or not, the wagging squig watched him until he consumed the gift, no matter his own wishes. Hippocrates did not seem to mind his main aide being affectionately protected or bossed about by the huge squig, but then it didn't really matter what he thought. For to Kronan, Tiddles could do no wrong, and if that was the case, then, well, he could do no wrong.
You must side with the power base. Don't question it. You are surviving. Who knows how long you'll survive for. As long as you're with Tiddles, then you have the protection of the war boss himself, Kronan. So don't complain. Don't complain.
So even when Tiddles borrowed someone's limb as a meal, sometimes even during a meeting, then it would behoove them to not grumble about it too much.
Yeah.
But let us crack on. And so it was that the newer starship commanders were far more compliant these days. It was probably the tree-like construction, with over 100 lovely green heads now festooned all over it, that gave them the hint that they did not really wish to indulge in the ritual of first contact. But of course, as orcs, there would always be some, and Kronan would have it no other way. For now, when he looked out of the viewports of his mighty stroke cruiser, as the Arstarters called these ships.
Oh, he has a cruiser now? Wow, okay.
He could see a whirlwind of small, sharp and beefy-looking kill cruisers and escorts. Like a cloud of flies on a giant squig of stoppings, they clustered around his ship. There were hundreds of them there, and many more arriving every day. Yet Kronan knew that there was something missing. He could not quite put his finger on what, though. He had taken his world of birth. He was gathering a colossal number of his people in one place. Yet he did not know if he had to go immediately, or to wait for more boys, cruisers and bosses to arrive.
I think you can go immediately with what you have. Those that are still coming, they will follow you. They will tag along as long as you have like a warp trail. I'm sure they'll follow it to your next location. Yeah, if you have enough boys, you have enough. What are they called again? Starships. Starships. If you have enough of them, yeah, go ahead, proceed with your next objective.
Because, being the cunning one, he was all too aware of how useless his own people could be when trying to read directions. If he set off too early, then anyone following was bound to be taken off course by the little distractions that often place themselves in the way of an orc. Undefended planets, agri-worlds, that sort of thing. And so it was that Kronan took to his quarters to consider the situation over a good night's sleep. Or so he thought. Now Kronan was indeed the cunning one, and he had wanted to remove all potential weakness from himself. He must become. So he decided to learn the arts of Void War.
Those are the different cons from Star Trek, right? Yeah. I don't know this con. I know those two cons. Wrath of Khan, and then the con from the modern day Star Trek movies. I don't know the con to the extreme, what is it, right? Yeah. I don't know him. I think maybe it's from the TV show Star Trek, right? Yeah. But I know the two movie cons.
For he was no super soldier, genetically engineered, then allowed to claim a huge swathe of the planet, and hailed as a prince, only to be defeated and forced to flee off into some self-imposed exile in space on a cryoship, to subsequently be found by a more advanced vessel, try to commandeer it to fail again, and then be exiled on another planet next to an orb that would explode, then be picked up by the same schmucks who found the first ship, take that one over, simply to be defeated again by his arch-nemesis, purely because he could not grasp three-dimensional warfare.
Yeah, you know, plot holes or plot armor in those movies.
And so it was that Kronan had asked Isaac Newton to set up a visual assistance in this regard. Hence, when Kronan went to his chambers to rest, his doorway opened wide into what would seem to be a huge tent. For, as discussed previously, Kronan found the Hume dwellings deeply un-orky. Hence, he had his home made to look like a tent of his people. Hanging from the ceiling of his tent were many, many grots.
Many. I like how Baldermort says that. Many orcs, many grots.
Each had differing lines of rope keeping them aloft as they rose and descended and swept slowly around the room.
Oh no, what is he using them for? Eish.
Now each of the grots had been given a makeover, so they appeared to be cruisers or escorts, with metal cones stapled onto their noses and armour attached to their sides with pins.
So that's his stratagem? That's how he organizes fleet battles and fleet organization? He has the grots depicted as ships? Oh wow, okay, interesting.
They floated about above him, so Kronan could watch how they moved, how they ascended and descended, and how, when one was near another, they could attack each other. Now starships will be using shooters and docker of a dizzyingly myriad forms, but the grots were able to use their short-range burners to mimic the situation quite nicely.
Man, so they kill each other up there?
Hence the little things would flail and gnash as they got near one another, and then attempt to burn them. But due to the way it had been set up so cunningly by Isaac, very few of them were actually able to get within range. So they would sweep near and then be dragged away into a further part of their circuit, only to have the grot there scream its chagrin at being robbed of its rightful kill. Hence, even while learning, Kronan found it very conducive to his most terrible state of being. That
this baby, I can imagine Kronan is this baby, just looking at the ceiling, the grots. No. I can't take this serious. I can't. Like, if I were to open the tent, what is it, like curtain or something? I'd open it and just see him on the floor and looking at the ground. I wouldn't take him seriously. Really, I would start laughing. I would really start laughing.
Of sinking. The screaming, the shouting, the grots floating above him. Kronan would often just lie on his back and watch them, and then go off into a perfectly restful deep slumber. Tonight was no different to normal, or at least, before he did indeed enter the land of Nod, the world of dreams. And it was an odd dream indeed, for Kronan was quite sure he was being spoken to by another force, an entity.
An entity that's not Drach'nyen? Interesting.
For it was not often that his freighter spoke to him. In fact, his bottom burps had never coalesced into a face either. But this night it was thus. For as he snoozed, he was laying down beneath his combating grots in their cruiser attire. His mind went blank for a change, when he anally exhaled most prodigiously and copiously. Truth be told, if he were awake, he would worry about it becoming a full-on follow-through. Yet this time, his freighter's had colour. Green, of course, and it did not diffuse on the winds of the grots. It shimmered with a glow and formed into a face, a large green and particularly toothy grin. Kronan looked at it nonchalantly, as one does in dreams, as it began to waffle through a deep-throated tract of some form of premonition.
I don't trust it, Kronan. I don't trust it. If it's not Drach'nyen talking to you, don't listen to it.
And thus it spake unto Kronan. Drach'nyen, the first Choppa. It should be yours, Kronan. The origins of Drach'nyen are a mystery.
Drach'nyen. Okay. Drach'nyen, the first Choppa. Okay. Drach'nyen.
Known perhaps even to orcs. Well, definitely actually. Demons will speak of the blade in fear, calling it the thorn in the rectum, or that bastard blade. They don't yet, but they will, I assure you. It is a weapon that existed long before the rise of humankind, and doubtless will bear witness to its end. With any luck, well, more like effort. With enough effort, it would see the end of humankind, thought Kronan. Alive with a dark cunning, Drach'nyen has the power to sunder the material universe with its cuttiness, hacking through matter as a mundane chopper moves through smoke.
Wow, this is a powerful chopper then. The fact that even demons, immaterial entities, are afraid of it. And it's also very powerful enough to also destroy the material world. Well, objects in the material world. It must be a very, very powerful chopper. But I still don't trust this entity that's talking to you. No.
Which seemed a bit wordy for a statement like, "It's sharp," mused Kronan.
And that's why I'm saying don't trust the words of whatever this entity is. It's not an orc, because orcs don't talk, with such complexity of words. They are very simple and to the point. No.
Even the hardest cod pieces of demons are armor sealed with the power of the warp is little proof against its assaults, as it drinks the energy of the war like water, magnifying it. Which really was so overstated that Kronan was beginning to lose his rag, even while in his dream. The fart apparition went on and on about Drach'nyen
Fart apparition.
taking many forms, or something like that, and it all sounded so poxy that Kronan zoned out utterly and thought about crumping instead. Yet, his ears perked up again at the most important part, the buttons on the inner guard that made it to all manner of magnificently brutal and unexpectedly cunning things. And Kronan knew that if he gained this Drach'nyen, he would not only be holding a magnificent chopper of wonder and worth, not only that it would be an icon by which he could draw even more of orchidom to his banners, but like a particularly potent strain of military-grade catnip to a felinoid formation, the swag or drip that Kronan would acquire would indeed be worthy of the excursion.
Okay. Alright. If you think that it is going to be a piece of Choppa that will influence other orcs to join your cause, then alright.
But also that this might be the most blatant get-out-of-jail-free MacGuffin of all MacGuffins that ever a protagonist could hold. And yet, it would be a gift from his benefactor, his mentor, Mork, his god. And should Kronan possess such a weapon, he knew that all others would know what he now knew. That he, Kronan, the most cunning yet orky of all orcs, well, apart from maybe Gansgul Magorek Thraka, but let's leave him out of this one, would hold a very sigil of his right, his might, his splendorous destiny. He would now be on a mission from God, and none could refute it. If only he could gain this Drach'nyen. And so it was that Kronan woke with this name rumbling around in his bonds. He recalled every nuance of the dream and related it to Mad Nut Krunkelstein, who he summoned immediately upon waking from this madness. The weird boy looked on in wonder at Kronan as he related the events he had witnessed. Now Madnut's first sally was to ask Kronan if he had eaten a rancid or rotten squig before reclining, or perhaps indulged in some way past its sell-by-date hummy meat, or if he thought that perhaps Kronan had taken on too much and insinuated that more delegation could indeed spread the load.
Oh my gosh, Madnut asking Kronan if he ate expired meat of all different kinds. No.
But when Kronan's pet Tiddles let some drool from his mighty and very gnashy jaw trickle over the shoulder of the cross-legged head weird boy, Madnut soon changed tack and nodded his agreement that this was indeed a potent vision from their god, Mork. When pushed for a resolution, Madnut sat there transfixed with confusion. Well, he did, until Kronan gave him a helpful buffet across the cheek and delicately pointed out that the scum Toba had called upon his gods to send him across Aquilonia only months before. And surely anything that Turd and his whiffy, weakling, Hubie gods could do, then surely the mighty Mork could do at least thrice as well, minimum. Collecting the teeth that had been helpfully dislodged from his gob, Madnut did indeed nod and state that it was true. Anything that Hubie gods could do, Mork could do better. I mean, like, literally anything. And so it was that the day was filled with many a shouted order from Madnut Krunkelstein, as he gathered as many of his fellow weird boys in one place as he could feasibly do, without their heads all popping like a piñata hit by a Baneblade. And it always amazed Kronan how his visions permitted the impossible to happen so effortlessly. It was almost as if the Greenskins were a walking cornucopia of unrealized power that merely required him to point out the potentials before they could be almost instantaneously realized. Like they were carrying around on a genetic level.
Nah, you guys are just chosen. I don't know. There's a perfect storm around Kronan de Cannon. It's so good. It works for him. Yeah, you are blessed. If I can say it like that, you are blessed.
Not that he would have put it that way, of course, because so few use the word cornucopia these days. Must be the lack of a classical education. But then, who could care when you could find nearly any information by just using a data slate? But I digress. And so it was that within only 2 days, the plan was reaching fruition. Kronan strode to the hangar bay and was immediately accosted with the most strange of sights. So strange was it that he was not entirely certain he was still awake. Or he was, until his rebellious left arm crept into his butt crack again.
Ew. Don't. I remember he has a shield generator in his butt crack. Be careful, don't break it.
And it never did that in his dreams. Hence, Kronan knew he was awake. Yet his mind boggled at what transpired before his vision. For as he entered the hangar, he was accosted with the most whiffy of pongs, as Madnut had filled the entire area with pungent and yucky-smelling incense. Well, to call it incense was a stretch. For some reason, Madnut had gotten into the habit of using giant squig-off pats for his fires. He stated it lent to an otherworldly ambiance, but most believed it was because his main grot attendants did not like him much. But after the grog-induced dance of the grots that Madnut had subjected to their camp, it was no surprise. For one entire night he had got completely pissed, and then invoked green smashing stamping feet of Gork and Mork across their entire compound. The carnage had been horrific, but then they were only grots, and the numbers came up again in no time. Many of the fleets or flotillas seemed to bring their own grots, which was always handy. Alas, the grots did not see the funny side of the event. Go
They'll never see anything funny when it's dealing with them. Nothing.
figure. And so it was that Kronan strode into the bay, trying his best to not breathe through his nose, and he was assailed by a vision of true power. Kronan had decided that this would be a quest of unprecedented personal achievement, or a total failure that would make him look less skilled or useful than an iceberg lettuce. Hence, in either case, he did not want a gaggle of fauners there to get in his way.
But this is high risk, high reward. And, who are you not to take such measures, Kronan?
It was to be a small, crack elite group. It would be he, Tiddles, Grinner and Madnut only, who would go on this awesome quest. Now, Gitsgusher McMurder had not been overly thrilled to be separated from his war boss, or involved in this epic quest, nor Dacker von Spashhoven, and Hypocrates insisted that Happy Len at least attend as well, just in case emergency medical assistance would be required. Kronan ignored most of them, yet knew that Tiddles would definitely like his own pet, Len, to be along for the ride, and acquiesce to this one point alone. But he informed
The fact that Tiddles has a pet is crazy. It's crazy.
Dacker von Smashhoven that he would be required to stay and make everyone toe the line. And when he pointed out to Gitsgusher McMurder that he also would be needed to run the welcome wagon and the first contact protocols, both were sated. Not that it made a heck of a lot of difference, thought Kronan, as he would just lop off their heads if they disagreed. Yet his time and revelations in the events that ran up to, and included, the Squig Games, did moderate some of his behaviour these days. Oh, he was unspeakably brutal and violent as always, but he did restrain himself and offered just a modicum of consideration to his main bosses.
That's the hallmarks of a statesman, of a leader. You're doing well, Kronan.
All bar Grinner, of course. As that rapscallion was not to be trusted, Kronan would take him along for the ride. Thus Madnut screamed a final dragged-out bellow, and the ritual came to its conclusion. The power of the weird boys was crystallized by the roar from the psycho orc, and before them it rent a hole in space and time. Kronan, Madnut, Grinner and Tiddles, and his pet, Happy Len, all looked at the green wobbling tear in reality, and then stepped inside. And they were launched across the galaxy to the one place they could possibly find Drach'nyen, the first Choppa. A place called Armageddon.
Oh my gosh.
Which was once called Ullanor. The very birthplace of the orcs.
Yes, I've heard of this. That Armageddon is the homeworld of the orcs, and it was Ullanor where the Emperor and what's his name again? Horus Lupercal. Yes, they had their fight there against a very powerful mechanized orc beast, and they defeated it on Ullanor, if I'm not mistaken, right? It was Ullanor, right? Yeah, and that's also where they had their parade, right? Yes, it was on Ullanor. That has been renamed into Armageddon. Ullanor.
To be continued.
Okay, guys, that is it with Legend of Kronan Quest for Drach'nyen, the first Choppa, made on Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer YouTube channel, and this was a request from Mitch as I continue with the Kronan Drach'nyen playlist. And yeah, Kronan is beginning to organize his war fleets, if I can say that. And now he needs a weapon that can rally more orcs to his side and, have them being controlled and led by him and him alone. And he's been given visions by an entity which I'm not entirely sure about. I don't really trust this entity, but Kronan does. He's taking a chance with it. It has given him vital information about a weapon that was created and left on their homeworld of Ullanor, sorry. And yeah, this weapon is said to be extremely powerful. It can destroy, objects within the material world and the immaterial world. Demons are also afraid of this weapon. So it must be a very, very powerful device or chopper. And yeah, there's a 3-man, or should I say 4-man team that includes Kronan, Grinner, Madnut, as well as Tiddles, and Tiddles' pet. They're all going to Ullanor to go and look for this weapon. And yeah, hopefully he can find it, and hopefully it will be as useful as he hopes it will be in terms of rallying more orcs to his side. I like the first contact rules of the orcs. It's very simple and to the point. If you think you can challenge the war boss that has invited you to join his forces, do so, and let's see if you can win. If you can't, your head will be presented on a spike. And yeah, many orcs thought that they could take their chances against Kronan, and they found out the hard way that you don't have a chance. You don't have a chance. But it is the orc way. It's the orc culture. I am not really surprised that they took this path. I would be surprised if they didn't. I would be surprised if they didn't have a little scrap, as a formal gesture or a formal greeting. There has to be some death. There has to be some orcs dying, and some sort of order and structure to be presented from such chaos. Yes, it's necessary. So yeah, I like the welcoming initiative of Kronan and his war. And yeah, this weapon better be as good as it's claimed to be. And it's going to be difficult because Armageddon is controlled by the Imperium of Man. There's a lot of forces on Armageddon. There's a lot of hive cities on Armageddon. I don't know where would he start looking for this weapon. Where do you start? Because many of the infrastructure and architecture, if you can say that, of the orc kind that was on the planet has been eroded, has been erased by the Imperium of Man once they took over the planet. They utterly destroyed that planet's, history, joined with the orcs. They destroyed it and they put massive cities everywhere and claiming it as their own. The planet is colonized. Yes, it might be the homeworld of the orcs, but I don't know if they will find anything there that resembles anything related to the orcs. Maybe underground, but on the surface, I don't think they'll find anything. So it's going to be like a needle in a haystack type of situation where they'll have to comb throughout the entire planet, or maybe their luck will push them through and they'll just stumble upon things that they require, or a map or something that will direct them to where the chopper is. Yeah. If they believe in Mork and Mork bestows upon them luck, I'm sure. I'm sure they will find it. Somehow, somewhere, they will find it. Yeah. Alright, guys. Yeah, that is it. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, give it a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And hopefully I'll see you guys with the next episode. I'm not entirely sure which one it will be. I'll have to just double check. Yes, I'll have to just double check which episode it will be, and then I'll be here. Yeah. Alright. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.